final quarter begins right now.
Welcome to the final quarter on the CBS 8 app. I'm Karthik and I think I see him in the distance all the way in Peoria, Arizona. It's Jake Garriani out there for spring training for the San Diego Padres. I hope your travels were safe, my friend.
From an undisclosed hotel near the Peoria Sports Complex, we are out here in the belly of the beast, Padres spring training. Day one, we just drove out from San Diego, so looking forward to all this great coverage. I know we're going to talk a ton about the Padres here, Karthik, but it's exciting, right? Spring training means optimism, and optimism is always fun at the beginning of a baseball season.
For sure, and we're here, pitchers and catchers report in a couple of days. We'll have the full team there. I know some key players already there, Jake, and a very exciting time. And as you said, optimism. I think a lot of fans are excited for if this core can really get done what they've been hoping this team can get done over the last few years. As we get ready to head into the season, what is your optimism as spring training really gets underway?
Yeah, look, Karthik, most of this roster is already here ahead of Sunday's final report date for the entire team as they get ready to roll into spring training as a core that's obviously going to be a little bit messed up with the WBC this year. But I think the optimism surrounding the San Diego Padres this year is that core that you mentioned. Just think about some of the folks coming back wearing the brown and gold, right? I mean, you're talking about Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts, Fernando Tatis Jr., Jackson Merrill, Ramon Laureano, Jake Cronenworth, Gavin Sheets at first. You had Miguel Andujar as one of the newcomers at the DH spot, Freddie Fermin behind the dish. That is a solid lineup no matter which way you slice it. And then you look over to the pitching side of things, and yeah, sure, Dylan Cease went over to Toronto. Yu Darvish is out the entire season with an injury, but they're going to get some of these arms back and healthy, right? Joe Musgrove coming off Tommy John surgery. Michael King missed so much of last season. A healthy Michael King is a massive game changer. You couple that with the way Nick Pivetta has pitched a season ago and hopefully rides that momentum into this year. And then, Karthik, I genuinely think Randy Vasquez has a massive breakout season. They're going to figure out who that fifth starter in the rotation is as we get through spring. And as you know, Karthik, look, it takes way more than 5 pitchers to get through 162, so you'll see a lot of these pitchers, the starters at least, as they fight for that fifth spot in the rotation. And then you want to play a little bit of devil's advocate, that's fine. Of course, they've got a rookie manager in Craig Stammen. We will have to see how he is as a manager of the San Diego Padres. Yes, the sale of the team is circling. It's lingering around here. And yeah, A.J. Preller's contract is another thing we're all talking about. That's what makes this team so interesting. I think the optimism is the core that is returning for the San Diego Padres. This roster has been built in the sense of that the stars have to be stars for them to be successful. That's it. Stars got to be stars. And I think it's built that way, and it's going to be that way for a long time, Karthik.
I think that's definitely what fans are hoping for as the postseason comes, because last year in the postseason, they didn't see it as much. The year prior to that, they saw Fernando Tatis go absolutely bonkers, and that's kind of what they're hoping to see as the postseason goes. I still have questions for this roster, as though I'm still optimistic. I think they get close to 90 wins, maybe not 90 wins, but it's the back end of that starting rotation that you talked about. I already know that the bullpen is going to be great, and maybe it's something that they do like they did last year. The starters didn't typically go very deep innings last year, and that bullpen was really able to pick them up. As Jason Adam finally gets healthy and he's really able to go for the Padres, I think maybe the bullpen's what helps pick them up. But the back end of the rotation, what they do at first base, I still think is a question. But some of the other positions filled with holes. We're not wondering about catcher going into this year. We're not worried about left field going into this year. Some of the other things are what we're worried about. But hey, last year going into the season, we were like, hey, starting pitching is going to be amazing for this Padres ball club. And then it didn't pan out probably the way that many people thought. Dylan Cease didn't have as good of his year. They didn't have Joe Musgrove. Michael King got injured a couple of times throughout the season. So what expectations are and what actually unfolds is something that I'm definitely interested to see. But I think there's reasons to be optimistic for the Padres. I mean, it's very unlikely Jackson Merrill is going to go through the same kind of injuries that he went last year. And when he was really able to start picking it up and he could stay healthy, that guy was balling. We already saw what he could do in his his rookie campaign. Year 2, we saw the flashes when he could really stay healthy. In year 3, that's one of those stars that's really going to be integrated back in this lineup. I think that's going to help. I think Fernando Tatis Jr. has another all-star year. I'd like to see Manny Machado even produce more. But once again, Jake, as I said, as we get down to it, I think the Padres are obviously going to be a playoff team again. It's whether those stars, and I know we're all the way in spring training, but I'm going to mention the postseason right now. The stars have to show up in the postseason. Slow
down, my friend. I know there's
what date is it? What time is it? I got to flip the calendar here.
It's Friday the 13th, and my man's already talking about the postseason. I love that about you, Karthik. I love that you bring the energy. And there are a lot of questions surrounding this team, but again, I think it's that base core. One thing I would say that maybe has me a little concerned going into the season is I think I see a lot of people already pencil in Michael King and Joe Musgrove for 150 innings this year. And I go, hold on, slow down, right? Like these two guys are coming off serious injuries. I'm not sure exactly what the expectations of King and Musgrove are. So you are going to need some depth in that starting rotation. You look at a lot of guys kind of fighting for that 5th spot in a Kyle Hart and a Marco Gonzalez and a couple of other guys here that could really fit in that role for the San Diego Padres. You're going to need some arms for them, no doubt about it. And they're going to have to pitch really well, I think, going into this season. So there's a lot of optimism because of that core, but there are definitely questions. But look, aside from maybe the Dodgers and a couple other teams, every team's got questions, right?
For sure, yeah, and I think J.P. Sears, a guy that they traded for, they'd like to see him fill in the back end of the rotation as well. So we'll see. And speaking of trades and filling out the roster and who's going to play where, the mastermind who puts everything together, his name's A.J. Preller. And Jake, there's been a whole lot of questions since last season, the end of last season, coming into this season. What will be the status of A.J. Preller moving forward? Will he get that contract extension? People are wondering about it. Obviously, this is a guy, a mastermind, a mad scientist, a wheeler, dealer, whatever you want to call him. He does anything by means, and he's not afraid to spend money to try and make San Diego a winner. We'll hear from him here in a second about his upcoming contract extension. But what are your thoughts, Jake, as 2026 wraps up and we're going to be having that discussion?
I think it's a little bit weird, right? Pretty much every person close to this team, every expert that follows this team said that they thought the A.J. Preller extension was imminent, and that was months ago. And yet we're still sitting here as we head into spring training in the final year of his contract, and the man does not have an extension. Now, he claims, and he said that he doesn't think that possible sale really has anything to do with it. That makes it even more interesting to me, right? That would be kind of the one excuse where you go, okay, the team's up for sale. They want to get the new owners in, see if this is the people they want to keep in the front office. But the fact that he hasn't signed that extension is definitely questionable to me. And when I was at FanFest, we got to talk to A.J. Preller, and he said, I'm always about a fair deal, and I'm just trying to get to a point where it feels fair on both sides. And I really hadn't heard A.J. be that candid about a contract. So to me, I almost get the feeling that A.J., and this is my personal opinion, nothing he said, I almost get the feeling that he feels he's not getting a fair end of a contract extension right now. And if I'm the San Diego Padres, look, I'm a huge fan of A.J. Preller. I'm locking him up for a very, very long time. But right now, highly questionable that it hasn't been done, Karthik.
He was asked about it the other day. Let's go ahead and take a listen to what he had to say.
To talk to John, and I think again it's something that like anything, it's like when the time's right, the moment's right. Hoping to line up on something, hoping to have something here that that focus can be back on the field and go from there. But we'll see where it goes in the next couple of days. That's definitely been an element that's a little bit different. Obviously, when you have your direct boss is somebody that is going to be here. So that's probably something for myself that's at least it's kind of just a different element that's been added to the whole conversation. Ultimately, I think we're either going to do it or not. I don't think it's going to be, hey, we may have a new owner here at some point in time, and in the next few weeks, months, et cetera. So that's what's holding this up. Like that, I don't feel that at all.
I think interesting comments, and he kind of touched on a little bit of what you had mentioned as well. I think San Diego's got to keep him in, because I think at the end of the day, he's making the Padres an organization that has the chance to compete for championships, even though they're not one of the larger market teams. They don't get the revenue sharing off their TV deals like a team like the Dodgers, and he's still making them competitive. The Padres were a team that we're tooth and nail with the Dodgers for the division. Yeah, maybe the Dodgers didn't live up to the expectation of what their roster was, but at the end of the day, you only play the games that you play the games. And had the Padres won more against the Dodgers, and I know you can say and ifs, buts, maybes, whatever, but the Padres were there, and he puts a competitive roster out, and just a couple of years ago, the Padres had a really darn good chance of beating the Dodgers in the playoffs and moving on, and they probably should have. And this is a team that's made it to the NLCS in recent history as well. This is a guy that's put a winning team on the field. And what do you want to do in sports? You want to win. And I think A.J. Preller is the answer. I know he wills and deals. I know he trades away his prospects like crazy. And I know he spends a lot of money. But the product seems very worth it to me. And I think the fans think so too, because they show up to Petco Park in droves, Jake.
Fans forget really fast sometimes. This is a team that's made the postseason 4 of the last 6 years. They've won more than 90 games or more in back-to-back seasons for the first time in their franchise's history. In a ton of that is credit to Peter Seidler and is willing to open the checkbook at the time, but another huge chunk of that is what A.J. Preller has done for this organization. I'm a huge advocate for keeping him. I understand a lot of people maybe go, oh, how could you have traded this prospect or that prospect or whatever, but to your point, all he does is put this team in a position to compete for a championship year in and year out, to compete for the postseason and then see what happens. And I think that is such a beautiful thing. A quick story. I remember being out in Chicago when the Padres lost to the Cubs, Game 3, and I was sitting out there doing some live reports for Channel 8, and A.J. Preller is just walking around Wrigley Field. And after I'm done, I'm kind of sitting down in the chair, soaking it all in, and A.J. is walking off into the dugout, and he stops and he says, "What's up?" to me, and he says, "We're going to get it one of these days. We're going to get it." This man cares so deeply about the success of the San Diego Padres and this organization. It means a lot more to him than most GMs, not only because it's his job, but because his friend was Peter Seidler, and I know so badly he wants to get a championship for him. I think A.J. Preller is the right man to lead this organization. They need to extend him.
He's a go-getter, and I think he does it in a very creative way. It'll be very interesting to see how this contract extension unfolds. And, of course, it would maybe help the Padres if they could get somebody like Peter Seidler who wants to bankroll this thing the way that A.J. Preller could really fuel what he does to get the most out of this team. All right, Jake, let's wrap up on the Padres there, and let's move on to San Diego State men's basketball. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty of the regular season. As we record this, 7 games to go in the regular season for the Aztecs and plenty of Quadrant 2, Quadrant 1 games. And as the Mountain West Conference standings stand right now, half a game behind Utah State, who they will play later this year at home. Jake, how do you feel about the Aztecs closing out and winning the regular season championship in the Mountain West with the schedule that they have remaining?
I feel like they're playing pretty good basketball. You look at some of the games they've put together. They've been super successful at Viejas Arena, as they always are. Their recent 2 losses are at 2 very, very difficult places to play in Logan, Utah, and at Grand Canyon University. I know this team has kind of felt like they haven't hit their stride all season long, but then you kind of look and they go, they've been wildly successful. You're right there. It's all in front of you. You get to play Utah State in Viejas Arena, where you've been so good all year long, aside from that one weird loss to a not so good team, coming into Viejas. So in Troy, and I think this team is playing really quality basketball. And to me, Karthik, I know I've said it a bunch, but Brian Dutcher teams just get better and better as the year goes on. I think this is the team that's going to continue success through those final 7 games and really find themselves in a good spot to either win the Mountain West tournament or maybe even still get an at-large bid.
It's possible. The Mountain West Conference, if you look at the net rankings, is one of the higher-ranked conferences. I think last time I checked, they were 6th in the country when it comes to ranked conferences. So this is a conference that's probably going to get multiple teams in, whether that's 2, whether that's 3. That's the question. Bracketology's kind of flipped them around. They've had Utah State, New Mexico, San Diego State's in the picture. Sometimes they're the first 4 out. So all that's going to get decided as we go down. I think the big question for me is those Quad 1 games coming up for San Diego State. Can they get the job done? It's going to be imperative that they pick up some Quad 1 wins, at least 2 of the 3. Utah State, New Mexico, Boise State, as we record this, obviously. Net rankings can change, better off of teams win or lose or whatever the case might be, and the quality or, poor of, how much they win or lose by. And so we'll see what happens there, but they need to pick up those wins. If you want to get the things that get your NCAA at-large tournament resume, going as you get closer to March, you got to pick up those wins. They didn't do it in the non-conference conference this year. They didn't pick up those high-quality wins, and so now is the time. You have a chance with these Quadrant 2 and these Quadrant 1 games on your schedule to get it done, but it's not going to be easy. New Mexico on the road, Boise State on the road. Those are going to be tough games, and Utah State at home is going to be a tough game. So I'm very interested to see what San Diego State's able to do, but they can make one heck of a statement if they're able to punch this regular season title. And I think if they do and they pick up the wins and maybe only suffer one loss along the way, that might seal up enough for their at-large bid as long as they don't suffer an absolutely embarrassing loss in the Mountain West Conference tournament.
I completely agree. And as I mentioned before, it's kind of that situation where I think Brian Dutcher wants to keep it in the Aztecs' hands. And right now, with the final 7 games, it's all in the Aztecs' hands. It's kind of funny, serendipitous, if you will, that like they got to go get a win in New Mexico against Eric Olin and UCSD's old coach. That's going to be a massive game on the road there at the Pit, which is, you want to talk about another really tough place to play. And yet we talk about all this and that the team's playing good. I still, Karthik, don't believe they've fully hit their top momentum, right? Like I still think there's a lot to unlock with the San Diego State Aztecs team. I just hope we get to see it this season because it felt like maybe they're getting close. Maybe they're getting close. And they just have not fully opened up all the throttle. And I hope we get to see that team do it because as we went into the year, this is one of the most talented rosters that Brian Dutcher's ever had, right? And so now you kind of want to see it hit its full stride.
I feel like we've seen it at spurts of times. We saw it against Oregon, I feel like we saw it in the first half against Boise State, first half of New Mexico, and maybe them closing that game out and maybe closing that game out against Boise State, the grittiness and toughness of this team. I think we've seen it at times. We've not seen it for a full game, and I also want to see them get more healthy. Magoon Guath continues to have injury issues. Elsie Harrington's got to be healthy down the stretch because they've inserted him into the starting lineup as a true freshman. So those are things I'm also interested to see as we get down to the stretch of here. Jake, any final thoughts on Aztecs men's basketball?
I think they have absolutely no problem handling Nevada coming up here, a team they already beat pretty well, and then, go get those tough wins on the road.
We'll see how it all shapes out. Let's talk about one more Aztecs team, and that's the Aztecs football team. Their first Pac-12 schedule has come out, Jake, and it's going to be an interesting one in their new conference coming up. What games stick out to you on this schedule as we get ready for their first year in a new conference here?
I think the one that sticks out to me is the one that's technically not scheduled, right? That flex game at the very end of the year is such an interesting thing with the Pac-12 having the amount of teams that they have, everybody playing each other. But then they did that thing at the end of the year where they're going to try and put whomever is doing well in the Pac-12 in the best position to either try and get one of those college football playoff spots or a big bowl game by having those flex games at the end of the year. Now, the only thing we really know about those flex games is who the road team and who the home team is going to be. And then there's some options for the teams to try and bolster and strengthen their schedule. I find that to be interesting. I find the Aztecs non-conference, non-Pac-12 schedule to be interesting as well. Going up to UCLA at the Rose Bowl should be quite a moment. They did that a few years ago and got a win up there, and opening with Portland State, kind of a get-right game to begin the year. So it's an interesting schedule for sure. I don't know how I feel about the Pac-12 yet, and I think I'm putting that nicely, Karthik.
It's making a comeback, that's for certain, Jake. And it'll be interesting. That game against UCLA, I think that could be just big momentum for in-state and just being where they are. And then that James Madison game, how about that? The team that made the college football playoff last year going to be at Snapdragon Stadium. Fans, I'm looking at you right now. You better show up and show out for that game because that one's going to be a high marquee one for San Diego State football. I'm very interested to see how that one shakes out and then how they do in the conference. I've talked to people within the program, Jake, and I know you can buy hype all you want or not buy hype all you want. They're very excited and they feel like they can make a push for the college football playoff next year with their roster. And I know they've lost some key players like Trey White being one of them. But what I will say is because those same people told me watch out for them last year, and then they really actually played well last year. Maybe not to what they thought they could get by winning a Mountain West Conference championship, but they came close. So the fact that they're excited for that next year, cautiously buying into hype that they can have another good year, college football playoff, I guess we're going to see, but it'll be very interesting in their first year of the Pac-12.
I think the key is consistency, right, Karthik? Like you had the bad first year under Sean Lewis. He needed to get his guys in, get them right, do his thing. Last year it was that. You come up one loss short on the road in New Mexico in the final final game of the year to where you miss out on the Mountain West title game, and you play a team that nearly made the college football playoff in the bowl game, and you play them pretty darn well, to be honest. Now, can you do it again? Now, can you build on that, right? Let's see what Sean Lewis can do with that momentum. You cannot take a step back if you're the Scarlet and Black.
For sure, and I'm interested because Jaden Denegal played with a season's injury that he ended up having off-season surgery for. So he was really going through it throughout the year. So maybe we'll see him kind of be able to open it up more, and maybe the Aztecs look even better on offense next year, because I know that was kind of a downfall for them this year. So that'll be very interesting. Football season, obviously, a very long way away. Jake in Peoria, Arizona, and he'll continue to bring us Padres coverage from spring training over the next few days. Great content, and I know he's going to turn an amazing special out of it as well. Jake, any final thoughts from Peoria before we say a goodbye?
From my undisclosed hotel, I hope I didn't wake up all my my neighbors here. Although it is Friday night in Peoria, I'm sure they're out just tearing up the town. They're at the moon or something, right?
Yeah, I know that's what you and Daryl McComb, our videographer out there, probably going to go do the same after this, huh?
Daryl's already asleep, and it's been about a 14-and-a-half-hour day for me. Your boy's ironing some shirts, and I got to get back up at 6 in the morning to be ready to get in that clubhouse at 7. There will be no going out on the Peoria town for me tonight. I'm looking forward to getting in that clubhouse and hearing from the team.
That's what we call responsibility. And hey, on Valentine's, you'll be showing your love for the game. That's what you'll be doing, my friend. Hey, thanks for joining us out there from Peoria. I'm Karthik Venkatraman. That's Jake Garriani. Thanks for joining us on the final quarter on the CBS 8 app.